She had the computer on the sink like this, and every so often you see her little head poke out. And
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's super funny.
All set? Yeah, we're all ready to go. We can start. So I'm here with Josh and Meredith from Best Dressed Signs. Thanks for doing this on short notice and having us over to your place.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming over.
No problem. Yeah, it's my honor because, we were talking earlier about when I first kind of got to know your work, and it was around like 2011, you said, when you had the art show at Orchard?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How you guys actually started getting into the sign painting?
Okay, this is Josh here, obviously. I started sign painting before we met in San Francisco when we were both living out there. Mm-hmm. I kind of grew up in the San Francisco area. I had gone to school for painting after graduation, living in San Francisco, kind of curious about what I'm going to do with my life and that sort of thing. A friend of mine had suggested maybe you'd be interested in checking out this sign shop that she was working at. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like cool, like interesting. I'd always been trying to find something that I could do that was creative and I could be artistic and sort of utilize some of the skills I learned in school, stuff that I was interested in. I thought like tattooing would be amazing, but I was a bit intimidated. Out in San Francisco, there's so many good shops and it's kind of like a hard...
Yeah, some of the best shops in the world.
Yeah. I was like, it'd be so cool to apprentice or something like that, but I never got up the guts really to go in and try for that.
When you were in school, were you doing something for sign painting or was it a different type of
It was
art?
For painting. I was more interested in traditional oil painting. Mm-hmm. Like I loved Renaissance painting and Caravaggio and more traditional painting, and I loved the apprenticeship system of those like traditional art. That's why I thought tattooing would be a really interesting career because of that. The
kind of passes one or like the knowledge on to the next person.
Exactly. I love that idea. And so anyway, when my friend said, "Oh, come check out this sign shop," it's like, okay, yeah, sure. I never really thought about signs as other than just kind of getting me from one place to another. Right. And I never thought of like the traditional craft of sign painting as this like very artistic.
So that was your
form.
First introduction, like just your friend.
Yeah, so she was actually leaving the shop at the time, and she said, if you'd be interested in taking over my position at the shop, I can start showing you the ropes. The shop is called New Bohemia Signs. So we went in and it was like, wow, I can't believe this is like an actual thing that's happening. Like all this art, and in Meredith, her first experience in the shop was like that brought back a whole other memories of her grandfather was a sign painter.
Really?
Damon Steyer was the shop owner there. I basically became Damon's apprentice and learned the ropes at that shop.
Is he still in San Francisco at the new building?
And the shop is still going strong. Like they have a beautiful space there south of Market. They just painted up the whole like storefront. So if you're ever in San Francisco, definitely check out New Bohemia Signs.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really, really amazing. And I thanking my lucky stars that, really altered the course of my life. Being introduced to the shop. It was really great. I'm really grateful for it.
And Meredith, your grandfather was the sign painter, or your father?
My grandfather. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I never really thought about what he did. So he died when I was 13. So, I knew he was a sign painter. And my father would always, when we would go to visit my grandparents in Watertown, my father would always kind of do a little tour around to show us the different signs that my grandfather had painted around town.
So that was here, that wasn't in San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm originally from Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So my grandfather was a sign painter. He started off in, I think, just like most people do in a shop as an apprentice. And then he got a job at Zayre, which was this kind of like a Target sort of place, but like from the 50s or whatever. he was doing show cards. So the temporary paper signs, like that say sale or whatever, raincoats, $1.99 or whatever. We have a photograph of him drafting up some show cards. So that was like a steady job that he had with, he raised his family on it. But then he also did the bingo sign for the local church, and he did some gold leaf around Watertown. But honestly, I never gave any of that much thought until I met Josh. And then when I met him, I was like, oh, my grandfather was a sign painter. That's weird. And the first time I went to New Bohemia to visit him, I walked in and it was like just the smell, because my grandfather had in the basement, he had like his workshop in the basement, and it just brought all of that back of my grandfather's basement. And I've definitely thought more about my grandfather in the last 12 years that I've known Josh than I did in the first 13 years that when
the
he was
smell
alive.
of one-shot enamel paint is kind of unmistakable.
It's burned into the olfactory system. Yeah.
Did you guys meet in Boston? Yeah, I think you just said that.
Yeah, so I moved to San Francisco and then met Josh. When we met, we moved back here and we went to grad school. My background is in English literature, so I went to grad school for literature. I didn't start painting until after I graduated. I mean, here and there I would do stuff, but basically after I graduated from grad school, the shop was kind of taking off. Like Josh's signs were kind of taking off and he needed some help. And so I started helping and then inevitably just picked up a brush and, still definitely do more like large scale work. I don't do pinstriping or anything like really fine or requires like tons of skill. but I actually paint probably
she's like the workhorse.
Yeah, I paint the bulk of the paintings. Like I'll get everything in, and then Josh will come in and like make it look awesome.
Do the finishing. Yeah, but it's really funny. Like you were an English major.
Yeah.
And usually what happens, like art students go and study and then they can't do anything with their artist career. Yeah. And so they have to do something more, I guess, reliable. Yeah. And it's funny how
English
you have that
is not very reliable.
No. With like teaching or anything like that.
Yeah. It's really actually interesting because I've had more opportunity to write and have my work published and have my work read by people doing the sign painting thing than I think I ever would have if I had become a teacher, which is pretty much all you can do.
What, the journal.
I curate the Prephaelite Society art shows, and I usually will write an essay like about whatever the theme is.
And you guys started the pre-vinyl?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard. It's a word. Yeah, you might want to explain.
I can always refer to it there.
Yeah, it's actually all over the place in this room. That started.
Do you want to say what it is?
Okay, so the Prephaelite Society is a loose network of sign painters and sign enthusiasts and people who are just generally interested and invested in the aesthetics of the built environment. People who care what their neighborhoods look like.
Right.
It's not only sign painters, it's writers and photographers and any kind of documentarian, anybody that's architects, like anybody that would fall into the category of caring what their neighborhood looks like. It actually started because Josh wanted to kind of start a little group online kind of forum thing for upcoming community of like kind of upcoming sign painters, because when we first moved to Boston in 2010 we were just starting to meet other sign painters online. I mean, I think we were still using like Flickr. I don't even know if we were really even like on Facebook.
Yeah, there was no thing like Instagram now.
Yeah.
MySpace.
Yeah. I was in grad school. I was studying the Romantic poets. I was really into the Pre-Raphaelites, who were a group of 19th century.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's from that painting. Yeah, so they were a group of 19th century British artists who kind of rebelled against the conventional way of learning art, which at the time was very structured. Like if you wanted to be a good artist, you had to, incorporate like the pyramid composition or the, that kind of thing. And they saw that tradition as having originated with Raphael. They rebelled against that and started making art that was brand new at the time. We really liked that, and we liked the rebellious spirit of the Pre-Raphaelites. And so Josh came up with the name, the Prephaelite Society.
It's like kind of pre-vinyl.
Yeah.
The one misunderstanding about the Prephaelite Society is that it is not the anti-vinyl society. It's not like an anti-group. It's not a negative...
Or like looking back specifically to the past. We're actually kind of future sort of thinking.
Yeah, it's a progressive group in every sense of the word, I think. And it's about looking to the past to be inspired to make something new.
Right.
But, using that group, we started doing the art show. First art show was at Orchard Skate Shop in Alston. There's other people within the sign painting community putting on art shows as well, like with the Pre-Vinylite Society moniker, because we wanted it to be sort of an open...
all-inclusive type of thing.
And, and then Meredith started putting on more art shows, and I don't know if you want to talk about the most recent art shows that you've done with the Pre-Vinylettes.
In recent years, we put on the Pre-Vinylette show, which was all women sign painters. In 2017 in Chicago, we had, it was called the Pre-Vinylette Society, an international showcase of women sign painters. Traditionally, sign painting, like most trades, is, historically male-dominated, and that sort of sentiment kind of lingers. Most of the people that are kind of veterans in the field that you know of are men, mainly because there were very few publications about sign painting in its heyday, and most of those focused on men. And there were definitely some women painting signs, but it was the traditional paths to learning the trade were trade schools, apprenticeships, and unions, and none of those were necessarily hospitable to women. So now we have this new kind of crop of sign painters, and a lot of them are women. They didn't really have other women to kind of look up to or to learn from or whatever, so we saw that there was a real need for this kind of like feminine camaraderie.
Definitely.
So I reached out to my friend Shelby Rodifer of Finer Signs in Chicago to see if she wanted to collaborate on doing an all-women sign painting show. We did that in 2017, and there were 60 women sign painters from, I think it was 8 or 9 countries. A lot of them realized that it would cost just as much to come to Chicago as it would to ship their piece.
Okay.
So a lot of them ended up coming, and we had the gallery that we did it at had wall space for murals, and it ended up being kind of like a week-long little meet, kind of like a
little convention type.
Yeah, a little letterheads, but for women. And it was a huge success, and it got good press, and we did the murals, and then we had the opening night, which was like crazy. We had a DJ. It was really fun. And then the following day we had a panel discussion where we kind of talked about being women in a male-dominated field.
Right.
And sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. So that was awesome. And so now we're going to do a second one, and that's going to be in September of this year, 2020, in Portland, Oregon. And we're going to have like 100 and something, 120, 150, something like that, artists. So it's the original women that were in the first show, and then even more women from even more countries.
When it comes closer, definitely let us know, and we'll help promote that as well.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the case, like a lot of fields just over-dominated by men, and same thing with tattooing and painting as well, like we were talking about classical painting. There's a lot of women painters that kind of went unnamed because they just worked in the studio of this artist, so they did the bulk of the work, and then someone else authored it.
I mean, that's just Western history. It was written by men, and that's changing.
But it's definitely changing, and I see the landscape changing in tattooing, where a lot more women are having more of a voice, and I think it's great because you lose out on a whole other dynamic.
Yep.
And I always think more people you have more inspiration and more perspectives, and it just it all adds.
Even things like in sign painting specifically, like different cultures. I also do, so I'm just like plugging my
Don't
project.
Plug it, this is what it's for.
So I also edited the Prephaelite Society Journal, which is like a magazine that kind of treats sign painting as like a topic worthy of discussion. In addition to it being, a trade to be mastered, it's also has a lot of avenues for discussion and for ideas. The first one came out last year, and now we're working on the second one. And the second one has a lot of features there's a feature on Jamaican sign painters, Vietnamese sign painters. I'm supposed to write a story that I hopefully will, before we actually publish this, about my grandfather and the kind of Armenian, my grandfather is Armenian, and the Armenian kind of writing system and how lettering is important in that culture. So talking about different kinds of cultures in terms of what their standards are as far as like what a good letter is. Right. Because so much of how we Americans and Europeans and the Western world look at what is correct or what is the standard is like an old white male standard that's been around for hundreds of years. And there are different perspectives and different ways of looking at what is beautiful and what is correct or whatever. So
that's good.
And it's exciting to see all these different perspectives. Like you were saying, I mean, there's so much out there, so much more interesting things than you say, like, this is the one correct way of doing things, and every letter form has to look exactly like this. And then you find out, well, there's this whole other view on it, and like maybe something super bright, intense letters with 5 different drop shadows and a bevel is like, that's the ideal. And where, I don't know, I just like, it's limiting if you say, oh, this one perfect kind of letter form. I guess I'm getting letter nerdy here.
No, please do.
But I just love the idea that, to be open and that there's so many possibilities, and to limit yourself just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. There's a common thing in tattooing as well. Like there's like the people who want to go straight traditional and kind of go back in time and almost kind of stay there.
Right.
And then there's people who go far out,
the
other side.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, and definitely, I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't appreciate the traditional letter forms, just like traditional tattooing, which is absolutely beautiful, and I love it. And I love traditional sign painting as, the American and the traditional type of letter forms that we're more familiar with. I love more photorealistic art and, Renaissance art, but then I also love like kind of weird, wacky, abstract, avant-garde art as well, you know.
Yeah, everything has its purpose.
Yeah, and it's kind of great to draw inspiration from different sources.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you want more options and more perspectives? Like why wouldn't you? I don't know.
I think that's where we kind of started off when doing the like Prephaelite Society. We loved this younger generation coming up and doing things a little bit differently than sort of the classic upbringing of the sign painting tradition.
Right.
And I thought it was kind of exciting to see people that weren't totally skilled in a traditional way. They were doing things that you wouldn't even really think of. And I mean, I think eventually it's probably, good to learn those traditions, because I think it's important to have that background. But I think it's also exciting to see someone that doesn't, see what they come up with. Because I think it's kind of like similar to playing the guitar or something, like someone that was like classically trained on the guitar versus someone that just kind of picked up the guitar and comes up with like, I mean, that's why we love, like Meredith and I love punk and like, more like not like classical, like a classical.
Yeah, it's not on your radio station.
Yeah. Someone just picked up a guitar and they, figured out some chords and they just went for it.
Right.
And sometimes some of the best stuff can come out of that.
Yeah, I always do little parallels between like the music and drawing or writing and painting and like try to see those similarities between the two. And in the years that I've been kind of like reflecting, it seems like if you're overtrained, it can kind of be a detriment to something creative, because you almost need some form of mistake making in order to kind of come up with something different.
I'm talking more about art and things like that, but I imagine you have to be careful with tattooing just because you're more of a permanent situation on someone's body. But
anything new that I would try, I would want to try it on a piece of paper first.
Yeah. Right.
And then maybe the only thing I'm trying to do differently is just get the technique better, or like or tighten up the drawing. But any sort of subject matter, I really gotta play with that first before
you start to get really.
But you might have somebody who's kind of wild thinking and like, just go for it.
Right.
And those you can have fun with, but you might not hit a home run with that one.
I think that's the thing. Is like, I suppose I don't want to preach that it's wise to just be unskilled and go for it. I mean, I think you always want to strive to become better at what you do.
Sure.
And I think that's sort of part of like sign painting is probably 75 to 95% of the time we don't know what we're doing, but we're hopefully drawing on like, something new, that we're always doing something different, but we're always trying to draw on some sort of knowledge that we've acquired in the past. And you're always building. And I think with tattooing as well as sign painting, I think I went off on a little bit different tangent here, sorry about that.
It's all good.
But I think you're always learning, obviously, and like I never feel like the learning has ever stops. It just continually I always continue to feel like I don't know enough, or I guess I'm getting back to sort of seeing the younger generation sort of coming up and doing interesting things when sign painting. But I think everybody's genuinely wanting to get better. But yeah, like you were saying, it's kind of exciting seeing what people do when they're maybe are fresh to the, they have fresh eyes, or their fresh sort of excitement that comes into the trade when you have like younger people starting to do it and have their own ideas of what they can bring to it.
Yeah. You guys were saying earlier about doing workshops. Are you still doing that?
Well, we're moving into this new shop, which is right off of the train and in a neighborhood where there's more stuff going on. I think we're going to try to do workshops coming up, because the shop that we're currently in, that we're moving out of, it just wasn't very conducive to that kind of thing. It's small, and we shared it with other people, and it's kind of not, you'd have to take like a sketchy bus ride or an Uber or drive there. So we're hoping that this new studio will be a place that we can have people come and maybe do some classes, and maybe have it be a little bit, maybe develop a little more of community. Hopefully.
Yeah, I was thinking just in the slow season, because I know in like tattooing there's slow seasons, but it'd be good to take that time and share what you guys know, because it's fantastic stuff.
And the past few years I've been teaching a class over at Mass Art, the art college here, and I've been really enjoying it, and I learn a lot from actually the students. The class that I'm teaching is in the graphic design department. It's kind of fun, like to talk to the students and see what they're into, what their inspirations are, and they tell me about different artists that they're into. And I think at first I was pretty nervous actually to teach the class, but I thought it was like a fun, nerve-wracking but worthwhile and kind of fun experience. So with that, having that experience, then and we've done like demos and workshops in the past, but I think it'll be pretty cool to do kind of, have a little bit of a, lettering school almost, not like a formal school, but at least have workshops and stuff.
Yeah. And for anybody that would like to make a commission for your work, do you guys travel as well, or is it mostly just based in Boston?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely travel. I had to put in for travel time and that sort of thing, but we do love to travel, and we'd love to do more murals around the world.
Earlier you were telling me about some murals you did in Cincinnati. Do you mind sharing that story again?
Sure, yeah. Do you want it?
Sure. Every year, and often maybe more than once a year, there's a kind of sign painting convention that happens around the world, and it's called Letterheads, and it's basically a meet of sign painters from all over the place, and there's workshops and talks, and usually there's some kind of mural painting involved. In 2015, we were invited by one of the original letterheads, who was it was basically in the 70s. Sorry, I keep hitting. In the 70s, there were maybe, I think it was like 5 or 7 guys who were sign painting apprentices. They started getting together, and they called themselves the Letterheads. And so for their 40th anniversary in 2015, they had a Letterheads meet at the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati. And one of the original Letterheads, Mark Otis, who is this incredible artist, an incredible, generous man. He and his wife, Rose, have been sign painting together for decades, and he really likes Josh and Josh's work. And so he invited Josh to design and be the project lead for one of, I think, 5 murals that were happening at the American Sign Museum around in the kind of parking lot area.
And if you haven't been to the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, it's
awesome.
Pretty incredible. It's got all kinds of cool old neon and all kinds of awesome stuff inside.
Is it antique as well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of like Route 66 signs, a lot of old gold leaf. I mean, just tons of...
And they built like all these storefronts inside the museum, so it's kind of like almost looks like a main street inside of the museum with neon and everything.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But yeah, we did, the mural that we did was in conjunction with the Wall Dogs, which is a group of muralists. And they go and they paint. They'll go to like a small town and organize this big event where they paint a bunch of murals around the town, and people can come and help paint on the murals. And it's like a big community event. And I think it kind of helps the town. Like if the town is kind of run down, if there's like walls.
It's like a revitalization project for towns. And so a lot of times the murals will have to do with like the history of whatever industry was in that town. So that mural was part of both the Letterheads and the Wall Dogs.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. There's always different little communities of events that get together. And mainly it's also a time to kind of party and drink beer and hang out and talk to each other,
kind of let loose.
Yeah, so similar to like tattoo conventions.
Exactly. Yeah. So we did that one. We also, at the Amsterdam Letterheads meet, they were painting a mural at the Heineken brewery.
Yeah.
And we went and just kind of hopped on. We weren't really like a main part of that, but we just kind of stopped by and picked up a brush. And they ended up putting us on the lettering that said, "Welcome to the Heineken brewery." So it's kind of like a...
That's kind of the cool thing about those, like the Wall Dog events and the different letterhead events, is the sort of, you can participate and you can jump on a wall, and even if you don't have that much skill or knowledge of how to paint, that everybody can kind of be involved in the people that aren't as skilled, like learn new things, and it's kind of a cool event for sure.
And these people gain experience as well by kind of watching the people who have more experience paint the same wall.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I wish we can go to more events. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah,
but
we missed a wall dog event in Keene, New Hampshire. They did one up there, but we were so busy we couldn't make it this year.
And do you guys mind sharing kind of like the work you've been doing lately on some projects that you have in Boston and maybe some other places?
Well, I just want to say that we have tattoo shops to thank for.
We're getting ready to do another sandwich sign for Good Faith.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be a full circle there.
That's good.
Yeah. We did the first one. That was our second sign, I think, in Boston.
Yeah, that one's gotten a little run down.
Wear and tear, yeah. Well, when I was in San Francisco, there was a sandwich board that we, or an A-frame that we painted that was on Haight Street. Somebody thought, there might have been on acid, but they thought that the A-frame was a surfboard, and they put it out in the middle of the street and started acting like it was surfing on the A-frame. So we're doing that, Good Faith, and then
there's another tattoo shop in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
We just did a sign for Ghost in the Machine here in Brighton.
I saw that.
Yeah, let's.
But we're also doing court tennis.
Oh yeah,
court tennis is like it's like a medieval form of tennis. It's
like real grass on the.
No, it's inside. It's really cool. It's tennis, but it's like a specific kind that goes back to the Middle Ages, and which is cool. I like that.
It's like a small ball, and you can bounce it off of the walls.
It's more like racquetball.
It's kind of like racquetball and tennis combined with like different angles in the wall. And the imagery they like is like the hand of God holding a tennis ball, like very old school.
Okay.
Like that's going to be interesting, and hopefully Meredith and I will get to play around. They'll show us how to play, but would it be like a more like the etching style, like Dürer style
I think
images?
So. Yeah, and it's the markings on the wall have to do with scoring. I'm really excited about it because you get to go to weird places, and that's probably my favorite thing about painting signs around Boston is you get to kind of like spend a couple days or a week in different neighborhoods or in a different kind of place. Like we would never in a million years go into this like private tennis club, but here we are. And
and you're going to be painting on the walls that they actually bounce the ball off of. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot of things in the pipeline.
That's awesome. Anything else you guys want to share, or it comes to mind that I didn't ask? Or
no, I don't think so. I mean, I think we really appreciate you guys coming. We would love to, if we had enough time, we could just throw it back in your guys' direction and start interviewing you.
We'll do it next trip.
We got a lot of questions.
You'll watch me clam up real fast.
We honestly love talking
about ourselves.
No. Well, I was going to say talking to tattoo artists and people in the tattoo community, because I think there's so many similarities to sign painting, and it's always great. It's almost similar to when we get together with other sign painters, because there's so many things that we can relate and talk about.
Let me get some information contact information from you guys. You're on Instagram and...
Well, we have Best Dressed Signs, and then we have Prephaelite Society, which I'm really, 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 really bad at updating, and would actually
you're going to be updated.
Love for somebody to take over that side of things for me. I'm just bad at social media, but yes, we have Best Dressed Signs, which Josh is in charge of, which is why it's good, and then Prephaelite Society, which I'm in charge of, and that's why it's not so good.
Do you have a website?
We have website, bestdressedsigns.com, prephaelitesociety.com. We're on Facebook, which we're also not great at.
No. Instagram website's probably the best way to check us out.
Yeah, and the way I tracked you down was through the email, linked through the Instagram anyway. So if anybody wanting some signs, they can get to you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, that was exciting for me. I was afraid that I wouldn't get you guys on such short notice.
Yeah, it's great to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, good. Yeah. Thank you.